Hey, good afternoon, everybody in the Millennium community. And it is much later than I normally do Time Out Tuesday today. It's about 2 o'clock. I had an appointment earlier in the day today, so I got a little bit delayed, but there was no way I was going to forget to do my 140th episode of Time Out Tuesday. And so here I am coming to you live again. And, today I wanted to talk about something that, you definitely began to hear a lot more of, especially as the debates about whether to send kids back to school or not was beginning, I guess, July and August. And there were a lot of people saying that you can't learn online and that's not a viable way to learn. And then there were other people saying that the risks were too great. And we all know what that debate was all about. And I'm not talking about politics. I'm just talking about the socio the social aspect versus the academic aspect, and whether it's feasible to teach kids in school and things like that. But and certainly I've seen a lot of that in other areas as well. And certainly you've heard people saying, that you can't learn martial arts online. No, you can learn martial arts online. Not everything is as not in black and white as people would like it to be. The answer to whether or not you can learn online anything is yes. And how do I know that? I know that because I've learned, I don't even know how many hundreds of things I've learned to do online. I've learned 1,000 different things about guitar online. I've learned all kinds of ways of gardening online. I've learned how to fix almost everything in my house online, especially during the COVID pandemic, where something broke, didn't really want to have someone come to the house to fix it. Is it something that I can fix on my own if I have the part? And it takes you 5 minutes. You go online, you look at YouTube, you learn how to do it, you follow the instructions, you learn, and then you learn something, and that's it. That little hunk of thing that you just did, you learned, and you learned it online, and you didn't have to go to dishwasher repair school to learn how to repair the dishwasher. I went to how to repair my dishwasher on YouTube, and that's all that was. And so many things can be learned online, and certainly to different degrees. So after now teaching online hundreds and hundreds of classes to martial arts students, I can tell you categorically that martial arts can be taught online. Now, do I think it's as good as being in person? No, I don't think it's as good as being in person. I think being in person adds an element of being able to have contact, being able to see firsthand and up close, literally feeling what something feels like, the closeness of interpersonal relationship. Well, all of these things clearly from a relationship building and communication perspective, and being in the midst of something, it's definitely better to be in person. But to say that it can't be taught flies completely in the face of what I actually see happening all the time, and especially over the last 3 or 4 months. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. As we get closer and closer to one of our testing cycles, which we have our third Zoom online testing cycle happening. I never thought we'd even do one of these, but we're now doing our third one. We test approximately every 2 months. We actually delayed this one a little bit longer to allow schools to open and some of the holidays to get past, so we weren't interfering. So we actually had close to 3 months in between this test and last. And as we get a little bit closer to testing, certainly inside the last 4 weeks, we pay a tremendous amount of attention on a per student basis to what they know, what they may have forgotten, what they need to know for their next promotional exam, and how far along they are in learning it. And we don't do this through magic or surveys. We ask everybody, what do you know? What do you need help with? Do you know this? Okay, you know it, great. Let's inspect what we expect. Let's take a look at it. And we divide them up into groups, and we watch them very carefully so that we can correct them and improve their new material. And we look at their older material to make sure that their old material is getting stronger and stronger every time. And this is something that we do whether we're online or not. But certainly we've been spending a lot of time in the last week or two examining that. And this is what's just absolutely mind-boggling to me, or not, maybe not mind-boggling. That's wrong. It's not really confusing to me at all. It's astounding to me. I think this is awesome what I've been seeing. As I go around the room and I'm asking the students, what material do you need help with? What are you working on for your next exam? On a significantly increasing level, and I don't mean one or two students. This has always happened with one or two students. I'm talking about dozens of our students now are reporting and demonstrating to us that they are several belts ahead, meaning that they know far more than they need to know for their upcoming test. In addition to that, for the very first time, I've got students that are in our lower and intermediate ranks that are able to demonstrate complex forms that we never taught anybody before they were even up to brown belt. But now, because they're moving through so much material, especially with our weapons, or our Kobudo system as it's known in Japanese, they're learning and becoming proficient in all of these beginning weapons exercises that we're exposing them to the more complex ones, and they're killing it. They're remembering them, they're learning them quickly, they're demonstrating them with proficiency, with strength, with speed, power, and focus. And then they need another thing and another thing. And what we're winding up with is a bunch of students. It's sort of like the equivalent of students being tested on addition in school, but they already know trigonometry. It really is very much like that, in that they're becoming so proficient in their existing requirements that they have extra time to take on all kinds of new material. And this is the first time I've ever seen this in all the time that I've been teaching or training. There's always one or two students that move ahead and excel, but this is the first time that not only are those students just knocking it out of the ballpark all the time, but many of our other students are just really gathering up so much more knowledge. And I think what's awesome about that is that during this period of time when we have so much opportunity to spend learning, we're going to just focus on this side of the learning equation. Then when we return back to normalcy, we're going to have time, because all of these students will be so far ahead. We'll be able to backtrack through a lot of the contact exercises and contact drills, and we'll clean up anything that was maybe lost in translation through online. But those students, after what I imagine is going to be a very short catch-up period, are going to find themselves so much farther ahead and so much stronger than any student in the history of our dojo has ever been. That's my prediction. I hope it turns out to be true. So, with that said, we're continuing to do our classes online in Zoom. I'm perfectly willing to speak with any parents that have concerns about why we're doing that still. I want to give you the 30-second, the elevator version of why we're still doing classes online. And I'll elaborate on this anytime anybody is interested in an elaboration. Here's the reason. The reason why we continue to do Zoom classes, despite the fact that government officials have said that we can technically open the school, here's the reason. The restrictions behind what we would have to do in order to open the school are rather onerous, and I'm not 100% convinced. Nah, that's an exaggeration. I'm pretty convinced that the experience won't be as expected, and that's that. We've all seen that already when we go back to work and when we go back to school. The experience is not quite as expected. Doesn't make it terrible, but it's not quite as expected. My concern is and always has been since the very early stages of this back in March, safety of our members, safety of our members' families, safety of my own family, our staff, and their families, and myself. In order to be compliant with myself and what I think is the most prudent thing to do, I want to wait for the schools to open. I want them to be open for a little while. I want to see how that fares. The schools have massive staffs and janitorial services and huge funding behind them to respond to emergencies. I want to see what kind of emergencies they encounter. I hope they have none, obviously. None of us want them to have a bad experience. I want to see what those experiences are. I want to learn from those experiences. I do not want to be a center point for students from many different school districts coming together and then possibly spreading it throughout, and then contact tracing determines that, coming to school and intermingling with multiple school district, children from multiple school districts was the cause of an outbreak. I don't want to be that. I don't think that's prudent for us. So we're gonna sit tight for a little bit and see what happens in the schools. I want to be clear on something. I'm not treating anybody at the school any different than I treated my own family. My own kids who go away to college, we ask them to stay behind for 30 days to see what happens at the schools when they all reopen before they head back to school. One of my kids just headed back actually today after watching carefully the data at that school. They did a really good job at that school of keeping things done during the first couple of weeks of, college party central, and we felt it was we were safe. He was safe going up to the living situation that he was going to be in, and my other son will be exploring his situation over the next couple of weeks as well. I wouldn't do anything different for our members than I would do for my own family. I think that that would be hypocritical of me, and I wouldn't want to be hypocritical. So, with that said, today was a long time out Tuesday. Let's continue down our path of safety. Let's continue down our path of caution. Let's not become complacent. Let's knock this virus out of our world so that we can go back to normal. Let's be patient. I wish everybody peace. I'll speak to you all soon, and I will see you at the dojo.